Good morning, friends, and welcome to the webinar. My name is Julie Boyer, and I just realized I'm going to throw my timer on so that I stay on time for you. So I'm going to be taking you through some great information on healthy digestion this morning. Welcome, everyone. If you're just joining us and you're watching us live, please do finish. If you can answer in the poll, I'd love to hear about your concerns about digestion. So this is me. I'm Julie. A little bit about my bio. I've got over 15 years of experience in nutrition and wellness. I founded a program called the 30-Day Whole Body Detox back in 2012. I'm the author of a book called 30 Days of Gratitude, and I'm the Wake Up with Gratitude podcast host. And yes, I do a lot of different things. Before we get into this presentation on digestion, I just want to share a little bit about my story. So I love food. And what's really cool is that I didn't really understand that how food really affected our bodies until I started working in this profession. I really never made the connection between what I was putting in my mouth and how I was feeling and how things in my body were working. And this is just me and my family. And before my daughter was when my daughter was very young, actually, I was eating my lunch every day, and I was making a really healthy lunch, or so I thought. So I would use, I don't know if you remember this, they used to have this fake chicken. So I'm a vegetarian. So I would eat this textured vegetable protein chicken. I would mix it in a frying pan. I would put it on a whole wheat tortilla with lots of, fresh vegetables and some hummus. Really delicious meal. And I thought I was making all these really good choices. But the strangest thing is that after every lunch that I would eat, I would remember this. I would have really bad pain in my stomach, like stomach cramps. And I thought, so super weird. I have stomach cramps every day, about half an hour after lunch. And it didn't really occur to me that there was something wrong with my digestion. And then I met this amazing woman named Dr. Libby Weaver. And she is just an incredible biochemist, a scientist, a PhD, and so many things. And she really helped me to understand how the body works, how the liver works, how our digestion works, and how the food that I was eating could be affecting my digestion. I really had no idea that there was a connection between what I had for lunch, which I thought was really healthy, and it is healthy for most people, but for me was causing me all this pain. So she inspired me to change the way that I was eating. And let me tell you, I was not interested in going gluten-free. This was at a time when gluten-free didn't even exist. And I was like, I'm not doing this. But I decided that I would listen to Dr. Libby. And so I tried it. I created this program that wasn't called the 30-Day Whole Body Detox then, but we did a 30-day program where we took gluten and dairy out, removed some inflammatory foods, had a few recipes. But what I realized, the biggest thing for me, the biggest change was at the end of those 30 days is that pain that I had in my stomach after every meal, every lunch disappeared. So that's really what the catalyst was for my journey to really get passionate and interested in digestion and healthy detoxification. And these are topics that I just love sharing with others because I didn't realize that what I was going through wasn't normal. And I love helping others to understand that the pain and discomfort that they're feeling isn't normal either. So what I'm going to do is, before I go into what's in the presentation, I'm going to just review. So some of your concerns from the poll, remember it's confidential. I'm going to end the polling now. So a large majority of people who answered the poll said constipation wasn't one of their biggest concerns, as was bloating and lack of quality sleep. All of these things can actually be related back to our digestion. So what I'm going to share today in approximately the next 35 minutes is my 7 tips for healthy digestion. So I'm going to talk about how digestion works, how to keep your gut happy, and why do we need fiber and probiotics. And what I'd like you to do is, as we're going through it, there's a Q&A in the chat. And so I invite you to write a question that comes up or something you're curious about in the Q&A so that I can address all your questions at the end. Okay, so number 7, digestion begins in the brain. All right, friends, close your eyes. I want you to imagine you're sitting in an Italian restaurant that has a classic pizza wood-fired oven, one of those ones that goes up to 900 degrees Fahrenheit. and you've ordered your favorite pizza. So for me, that's a margarita pizza. Oh, how I wish I could eat real gluten crust. But let's just imagine in this fantasy world, I'm eating a traditional Italian pizza, margarita pizza, with the just enough sauce to cover the crust, and a few beautiful fresh mozzarella pieces and a little bit of basil. And you see your chef slide that off the peel into the wood fired oven, and you can see the bubbles of the crust just kind of growing and getting grilled and blackened. And then they pull it out just a minute later and put it on a plate in front of you, and you can smell that cheese and the basil and the tomato sauce, and it just smells so incredibly delicious. Open your eyes. How many people are drooling right now, right? Raise your hand if you actually can feel your salivary glands producing saliva. So that's the thing, is our digestion begins before we eat. And it's so important to pause for a moment before we eat and tell our brains that I love it. Yeah, and empathizes with me too, right? I miss that pizza so much. But we tell our brain that we're getting ready to eat. And why that's so important is it helps our stomach to help produce hydrochloric acid, which we need to break down our food. And it also signals our pancreas that we need digestive enzymes. Now, one trick that I use to really help with this digestion in the brain first is before I eat, I do my best, not every time, to pause and just say thank you for the food. And even just a 2-second pause gives your brain a chance to prepare your body for healthy digestion. So that one change for some of you, sitting at a table, saying thank you for your food, could actually change your digestion very, very quickly. Okay, now I was talking about drool already. So we don't really think about saliva when it comes to digestion, but saliva really is like that first bit of digestion happens in your mouth, right? We're chewing our food. We know that if we don't chew our food, it won't get digested. You can have all the kale salads you want in the world, but if you're not chewing that kale enough, that kale is going to come out the other end and we're not going to get the nutrition for it. Some of you may or may not be aware of the function of saliva, and this is some newer things that I've started to really understand about why saliva is important in our digestion. So one is that it's a mild painkiller. So if you've ever had like a canker sore or something in your mouth, you might notice if you let the saliva pool around the canker sore, it actually does help to relieve the pain. It's actually a really, really strong painkiller, but it's just in such small amounts. If not, we'd be high on our saliva all day long. Not good. The saliva protects us from bad bacteria. So we're constantly being exposed to so many different sources of bacteria. And what happens is mucins, which are a protein that comes from mucus. It's like, you know, when kids like realize they can blow bubbles with their saliva, that's mucin. And what it does is it creates a net in our mouth to gather the bad bacteria. And then our saliva itself is antibacterial. So it helps to get rid of this bad bacteria. It's our first line of defense, right? Bacteria is really, really important in digestion, but we want the good bacteria. And so what saliva also does is it provides a safe place for good bacteria to propagate. So by protecting us from the bad bacteria, it allows a place for safe, healthy bacteria. Did you know that the bacteria in your mouth and in your stomach are completely different and not even related? So that's why I mentioned keeping the bacterial balance in our mouth. Using an oral probiotic is something we might want to consider, because an oral probiotic would have a very different strain of probiotic than the ones that we would use for our gut. Really important to brush before we go to bed. What that does is it helps to really helps to remove the bad bacteria before we go to sleep. And of course, any plaque and other things that have accumulated during the day. Then when we use an oral probiotic, what we do is we actually colonize our mouth with good bacteria so that we have less bad bacteria that shows up while we sleep. And then it's critical to brush when we wake to get rid of all that bad bacteria as quickly as possible, because that's really what causes our bad breath. Okay. I'm curious to know, did you learn something about saliva there? Because that's something new that I've added to this tip. So let me know if there was something new you learned there. Okay, number 5. So what happens in our stomach? It's really important to understand what's actually happening in our stomach, because that's actually closer to like here. Understanding how long foods usually spend in our stomach, it's 20 to 30 minutes, maybe longer if we didn't chew or if it's a heavier meal. And what happens is in our stomach that the remember I mentioned hydrochloric acid starts to get produced when we start thinking about eating. Well, that's really critical for breaking down food. Now, here's a tip to make sure that your stomach acid is able to break down the food more efficiently. So, have you ever sat down for dinner and the first thing you do is drink a glass of water, right? You sit down, you've got your glass of water. I mean, we want to drink water, but not right before a meal. And the reason is if we drink water right before a meal, what happens is it dilutes our stomach acid. So that makes it harder for us to digest our food because our acid isn't as strong. So I recommend pausing on drinking water before your meal. And pay attention. If you're having a sip of water after every single bite, which is something my husband used to do, is that you're not chewing your food enough. If you're using water to wash down your food, you need to chew your food a little bit longer before you try and swallow. Okay. So these things are going to affect whether or not we can absorb the nutrition. So the tip here is that drinking water right before a meal or drinking water after every bite is affecting your ability to digest your food. Okay, I'm counting backwards. So 4. We're going to head to the top 3 soon. So, how do we absorb nutrients? So, from our stomach, okay, so once things have transited through our stomach, the digested matter, it's called chyme, travels to the small intestine, and that's where our food is absorbed. Now, the liver and the pancreas, both of them will actually shoot or squirt digestive enzymes into the small intestine to help us to absorb the nutrition into our bloodstream. Okay. The exception is fat. Fat goes into the lymphatic system. It's not drained through our bloodstream, which means that it actually has direct access to our heart, which is why a very fatty meal like a double cheeseburger can actually, if we have heart issues, one meal could be the tipping point because the fat from that meal, it's a lot of saturated fat at once, can go directly to our heart. And if we already have heart issues, that actually can have really negative results. So this is why we want to pay attention to, our volume of food at a time and how much protein and saturated fat we're taking in to one meal. We have to allow our body to do the work of digestion. And that's another reason why we want to pay attention to not just our portions, but how do we feel as we're eating? I've gotten a lot better at understanding when I feel full. And I think that's another, tip that we can really start to change the way we feel about our digestion by paying attention to what it feels like to be full. This is something I work on to teach my daughter who is 10 and she is growing like crazy. And I actually sometimes can't believe how much food she ingests in a day. And I just, she's healthy. She's like doing fantastic, but I'm trying to teach her that to pay attention at a meal to know when you feel full. These days, because I've paid so much attention to this, I know right away when I've had a bit too much to eat, and then I will rely on digestive enzymes. Now, our body naturally produces digestive enzymes in the pancreas and in our liver, and these are what we use to support digestion. Okay, so the pancreas, um, of course, Naomi, yes. So someone was asking if I'm recording this information. Absolutely. So the pancreas is going to be secreting digestive enzymes that help to break down fats. It's called lipase. ACE is the enzyme part, carbohydrates, amylase, and proteins, protease. Okay. So this happens. This is normal. This is a good thing. As we age, especially, our ability to produce digestive enzymes is reduced. Also, if we no longer have a gallbladder, which is a storage area for many of our digestive enzymes, especially those that deal with fat, we will need digestive enzymes even more because we often, if you notice, I don't know if anybody who's watching live doesn't have a gallbladder. But when you remove the gallbladder, having a fatty meal is going to make you feel really, really terrible unless you're using a digestive enzyme. So for me, I always have digestive enzymes on hand. I used to say I keep them in my purse for when I go out for meals, but I haven't been out to a restaurant in over a year. So I do still keep them on hand because occasionally, especially when it's one of my favorite meals, I will not pay attention and I will eat too much. And I can feel it almost right away. And taking some digestive enzymes really helps the digestive process so that I don't feel crummy for the rest of the day. Okay, now the top 3 tips that I have for your digestive health. So keeping your intestinal barrier healthy. So I'm talking about the small intestine again. Don't worry about all the terms on this. I just want you to look at the images to see. So the small intestine is folded, okay, upon itself and upon itself again and upon itself again to allow for a greater area of absorption. And in between these little, they're called villi, it's supposed to be really tight so that things can't get through into the bloodstream without properly being broken down or filtered first, okay? So when our barrier is healthy, okay, that's on the left-hand side, only things that have been filtered are getting through, and that's really important. Um, what happens is, as our barrier, if our barrier gets inflamed, or if our barrier starts to kind of pull itself apart, things that aren't supposed to get into our bloodstream will get into our bloodstream. One of the biggest things around, having a leaky gut is this concept called grain brain, which happens to some people when their intestinal barrier isn't healthy and gluten and other things get through the barrier and end up crossing the blood brain barrier and affects our ability to think clearly. So it's so critical that we keep our barrier healthy. So what can we do for that? So here's some of the things that we can do to reduce our barrier. By the way, I'm seeing some things light up in the chat. What I recommend, if it's a question, please throw it in Q&A. And then at the end, I can actually answer all those questions. So you don't forget them, but then they don't disappear if the chat keeps moving, okay? So what do we do to keep our intestinal barrier healthy? We reduce the things that are causing inflammation. So such as, aspirin, NSAIDs, which are like Advil, our processed food load. I mean, we know chemical food additives. We know these things. And who doesn't know this list of things, right? But it's understanding why we want to reduce these things in our lives, right? I mean, stress is the one that I think everybody has been under a greater amount of stress. I could do maybe I should do one of my Sunday webinars on stress and ways to manage stress in a healthy way. But all these things are actually affecting the barrier and also impairing our ability to absorb nutrition, right? We're absorbing everything through our small intestine. So take a look at this list, make a quick note. Is there 1 or 2 things on this list that I could maybe reduce, right? What could I do today to make that change for my intestinal barrier? Okay, now we're going to talk about prebiotic and probiotics. So raise your hand if you're familiar with both of these terms. Okay, a few of you. That's great. Okay, awesome. So first of all, who needs these? Well, anybody who poops and anybody who doesn't poop, especially if you're not pooping. And I'll explain the reason why as we go into the next little bit of the presentation. Okay. So a prebiotic, when I first discovered what a prebiotic was, I was like, this makes so much sense. And I really understood like why fiber is so important to us, because I learned about probiotics first, which I think most people likely did, is they learned about a probiotic and the benefits of that first. But a prebiotic is actually the food for our probiotic. So for our guts, for our beneficial bacteria. So the prebiotic works in harmony with a probiotic. It's the food for our bacteria. So if we're not getting enough prebiotic in our diet, this is important. We want to get this from food. We can supplement, of course, but food is really, really important when we're thinking about a prebiotic. So prebiotic is something that helps to feed our beneficial bacteria. Inulin, for example, that's a non-digestible, so it doesn't get digested. What it helps to do is it helps to sweep away toxins, and it's great because it acts as a food and it also acts as an insoluble fiber. Inulin is your friend. You've probably heard of the fiber, psyllium husk, that kind of thing. Soluble fiber, again, that helps to bulk up our stool and get rid of things. But at the same time, pardon me, these are feeding our different species of, of gut bacteria. So that's what's so important, is it's not just about one type of fiber, it's about so many different ways, because our gut, as you'll learn, is filled with so many different kinds of amazing bacteria. Okay, so now that I've explained prebiotics, which is the food for the bacteria, let's talk about probiotic. So probiotics is promoting life. Okay, friends, I'm going to tell you something right now, and you might not like to hear it, but you are a walking bag of bacteria. I know you thought you made of cells, but you have 10 times the number of bacteria in your body than we do the human cells. So to me, this is so interesting. We talked about bacteria in our mouths. There's bacteria everywhere in our body, but most of them are concentrated in our gastrointestinal tract. And what I find really, really interesting is some of you may or may not remember when the human genome was sequenced, right? And how big of a deal that was, right? I don't know, this is when I was growing up and going to school. I was really interested in genetics. I was like, oh my gosh, we've like solved all the mysteries of the human body. We've sequenced the genome. And it was like, nope, sorry. Bacteria has way more of an influence on our bodies and the way that we feel and all these things than we ever imagined before. So now there's so much research into the microbiome, which I find super fascinating. So we could talk about this for a while, but I'll keep it simple. I read books on the microbiome for pleasure. Okay, but enough about me. So, okay, these are just a few little things that you might not have realized that's going on in your gut. Okay, so this is why we're really wanting to take care of our small intestine. Remember, our small intestine is where we're absorbing our nutrition. So we want to be using both a prebiotic and a probiotic to really have that healthy balance in our gut. Some of our nutrients are actually made by gut bacteria. Vitamin K, some of our B vitamins, biotin, thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, and B12, right? So super critical. 75% of your immune system is in our gut. There's never been a more important time to pay attention to what our immune system is doing, right? So we can take vitamin D and vitamin C, which are very well established as immune support. But if our gut is not healthy, if we have a really poor gut health, that is going to affect our immune system, whether or not we're taking nutritional supplements. This one's super critical. There are more neurotransmitters in the gut than in the brain. So when you have a gut feeling, that's a real thing, right? That is actually a feeling, an emotion. It's a chemical reaction that's happening in your gut. I think it's so critical for us to start to understand that ignoring a gut feeling it's not going to serve us. Raise your hand if you've ignored a gut feeling and it's gotten you into trouble. Right? So we're learning to really understand that our gut, right? It's important to listen to our gut because of all the neurotransmitters, right? The feel-good hormones are created in our gut. I mentioned about digestion and absorption. Probiotics help with healthy detoxification because, newsflash. Now we talked about people need prebiotic and probiotic, those who poop and those who don't poop. Those are pooping every day, which is good. You want to poop 1 to 3 times a day. The bulk of your stool is bacteria, and it's not food and not fiber. So you are actually shedding bacteria every day when you poop. So that's why it's important to keep replenishing your good bacteria and also feeding that good bacteria. Now, if you're not pooping at all, a probiotic can really, really help with that. It can help, as can fiber. Okay. But you need really critical, and we're going to talk about fiber. Let's talk about fiber. I mean, who doesn't want to talk about fiber, right? Like, it's Sunday morning, we've had breakfast, That's a good question. Was there fiber in your breakfast, right? Listen, friends, it's so important that we are eliminating every single day, because all that, if we don't eliminate every day, and for some people that are hearing this, wait, I should poop every day. Some of you might be thinking, I didn't know that. Like, I only go a couple times a week because my mom only goes twice a week, couple times a week, right? We learn. Remember how I told you at the beginning that I always had stomach cramps from eating my meal, and I didn't know that that wasn't normal. I hadn't realized the connection. So we might think that some of our digestive issues are normal because our family is suffering from them as well. And honestly, like, we don't really talk about poop between our friends. I mean, except for when we have babies. So interesting how we really pay attention to what babies are doing for elimination. And then we just forget to keep talking about it. 97% of North Americans get only 15 grams of fiber per day. It's half of what we need. So unless you are paying close attention to your fiber intake or adding additional fiber to your diet, you are not getting enough fiber. And this alone, this is why this is number one for me, because changing how much fiber someone is taking can have such a beautiful, beneficial effect on their digestion. We really need the different sources of fiber. Remember, I talked about prebiotic. There were all these different sources of fiber. So a one trick pony fiber, is not going to be enough. We want really different sources. You've likely heard of psyllium. Often you can get psyllium on its own, and that's great, but it's just one type of fiber. So psyllium it's the soluble type of fiber, and this one allows to bulk up, and it allows things to kind of move more slowly. So when things are moving more slowly through your system, it helps to mitigate blood sugar spikes. So really cool fact about soluble fiber. I mentioned inulin before as an insoluble fiber, so it just helps to clear things out. And fiber, it helps with bowel regularity. So to moving waste and toxins out of the colon efficiently. It's so important if you're taking a fiber supplement that you drink extra water. Fiber supplements are often really dry and chalky because it's fiber, and you can choke if you're not having adequate water. And I will say this, if you choose to supplement with a fiber supplement, first of all, make sure that remember those things we talked about to avoid for your barrier. So if your fiber supplement has artificial flavors or colors, or looks, a vivid color that's not normal, it's not a good fiber supplement. It may work, but it's going to have other negative effects that we don't want. But whatever you choose, if you're taking extra fiber, and you can do this through food, it's just harder because you need a large amount of volume, is to start very slowly. Okay. Especially if you're dealing with constipation. If you go big on a lot of fiber quickly and you're constipated, what's going to happen is you're actually going to get diarrhea, and you're not actually going to clear out the stuff that's kind of stuck there. All right. Feel like I could have added a number one plus, which is how to sit on the toilet effectively, but that's also really important. Get a squatty. All I'll say is get a squatty potty or a stool and change your angle. That will also make a difference to help you to poop. Okay. So friends, I laughed a lot and tried to make light of things about digestion, but to me, digestion really is the foundation of health. And when we are looking at overall health, our immune system, our skin, our sleep, all of these things, a lot of them can be traced back to not having healthy digestion. And the part that I think is really important to share and to understand is you can be eating really healthy food and still have poor digestion. And so that understanding that, if you're in pain, if you have cramps, if you're bloated all the time, if you constantly have that feeling of full, if you're not emptying your bowels, like those things aren't normal. And by finding ways to help you to get past these and have better digestion, you'll notice that a lot of the things that are, keeping you from really feeling your best will slowly fade away, and you might not even remember. Like, I don't remember what it was like, to have those stomach cramps every day. But what I know now is that I do feel so much better when gluten is not part of my diet. Friends, I don't cheat. Gluten does not make me feel good. if I accidentally have gluten, I notice it in my body almost right away. So it's a choice that I've made for myself and for my health. And that's what feels good for me. Not everyone needs to eliminate gluten from their diet permanently. I can handle dairy. Other people in my family cannot handle dairy at all, right? This is what's interesting is I want you to really think about what your needs are around your digestion. Now, if you were invited to watch today with a friend, message them directly. But if you are a friend of mine or you heard about this directly through me, please just send me an email to learn more about how I can help you with your digestion. Now, I do want to mention the 30-day whole body detox is coming soon. So I mentioned that program at the beginning, and the 30-day whole body detox. This is a program, like I said, that I created not just by myself, but back in in 2012. So this year would be our 10th time doing it, but we took a break last year because of the pandemic. I mean, nobody was interested. I certainly wasn't interested in doing a detox in those first few months of the pandemic, but now I'm ready to do a healthy detox. So the program will be relaunched this year in a different format than before, but basically, it's a whole food program where you nourish your body at a cellular level, and it really does help address healthy digestion and detoxification. So, as I wrap things up, I'm going to answer the questions. Okay. All right. Let me answer the questions. So, John's asked, how do they test for leaky guts? That is a tricky one. It's very hard to actually test, and a lot of physicians are still not convinced that this is a condition. So this is where learning and understanding your own body and how you feel is going to really be the only way we can really, actually say yes or no, you have leaky gut based on symptoms. And I'm not a physician, so that obviously, like, I can't answer that directly for you. But, when you notice those symptoms and as you change, like, at the end of if you did like a 30-day program, you would notice how different you feel. So, oh, awesome, Anne. That's great. Okay. Shay says, is it better to take digestive enzymes before a meal? Does it make a difference before, after, or during? What a great question. So digestive enzymes, let's say you have ordered a meal, like you're out or you got takeout and you got a meal that is going to give you digestive upset, like you're aware of it. So, so you're going to take your digestive enzymes before you start that meal. It could be I don't know if I would take it during a meal because you're probably not feeling, I'm hoping if you're feeling digestive upset during a meal, I would stop eating, right? Definitely stop eating. And then take your digestive enzymes. So they can work at any time. Of course, before is best, right? Because your body's telling you to start digesting, the enzymes will work. But I find the ones that I use, they work really, really well after a meal, because that's when I notice it more often for me, is I'll need them after. How long, and Tambry says, how long to wait taking vitamins after eating? Do you need to drink enough water to swallow them? Oh, that right away is fine. It's more the water before you have your meal, because remember we did that whole thing with the pizza and everything, and your saliva was going, and that your stomach acid started to build and your digestive enzymes were getting ready. So it's about, if you have a big glass of water right after that's happened, you're going to be diluting that. So if you're taking your vitamins or your nutritional supplements after your meal, yeah, by all means, take as much water as you need to make sure that those get down. I'm going to give you an extra trick here. So when you're taking if you take nutritional supplements, so what you can do is, it's like a bonus tip. So you have your supplements in your hand. I can do a whole handful, but I don't have them with me, but I'll just give you an idea. So you put them in, you drink like this. And then when you swallow, oh, sorry, the camera moved. When you swallow, tilt your head forward. So you get the water in, and then you tilt your head forward to swallow. And what it does is it actually allows, remember, kind of like a squatty potty puts you in the right position to poop. Leaning your head forward actually helps you. So when you're back like this, you're actually cutting off your ability to swallow. So you drink the water and you put your head forward, and trust me, you'll be able to swallow your vitamins a lot better. Okay, so I'm gonna, for those that are watching the recording, so remember, just get in touch with me by email. I have a list that I can add you on, like I'll send you the link for that if you want to just learn about the 30-day whole body detox when it comes out. Give me about a week. So this is, it's March 14th right now. So I'll have it all ready for you by next week. Oh, so I should mention again, I'm doing on Saturday next week, my Saturday 10 a.m. workshop or webinar will be on, do I need to detox? Okay, that's very simply what I'm going to talk about for about 30 minutes. All right, so stop.